Welcome to the Common Gavel Podcast, the podcast all about the Maryland Masonic family. The Common Gavel Podcast features news and stories from all across the state of Maryland.
Welcome to the Common Gavel Podcast, the podcast all about the Maryland Masonic family. I'm your host for this special edition, Brother Maynard Edwards, a.k.a. Rich Thurfield, depending on who you ask. Normally I'm the producer of the program, but this time I'm doing double duty as host and producer for a specific reason. This show is special because the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Masons in Maryland, Brother Richard P. Nagel, thought it would be a good idea to allow all the brethren to hear from the candidates who are running for elected office at the upcoming May communication. And so the podcast is the ideal format. Now, Brother Tom Foster, who normally hosts the program, is candidate for Senior Grand Warden, so we didn't want to have any unfair advantage by having his voice be the host of this particular show. So I'm taking over hosting duties for this time around, and you'll hear from Tom as a candidate in just a few minutes here on the show. Just a couple of quick reminders before we get into the program. Obviously, you're all paying attention to the news, and we understand that there are some health situations going on around the country, around the world even. Obviously, Masons with our handshakes, and we like to hug it out. Maybe just kind of keep an eye on that, guys. If you're sick, we know that you feel a strong sense of duty to your lodge, but if you're under the weather, stay home. And absolutely, let's limit any visits that are unnecessary to the Masonic home up at Bonnie Blank for right now, because we just want to make sure that any illnesses that are spreading around, whether it's the one that's in the news or some other kind of illness that's around, we keep that to a minimum and especially take care of those folks who are in our charge there at Bonnie Blank. So now that all of that is out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the format of this particular podcast. Each of the warden candidates is going to have 2 minutes to explain their goals, what it is that they want to bring to the office that they are seeking. 2 minutes is what they're going to get. Their entire resume is going to be printed in an upcoming edition of the Free State Freemason. So you'll be able to get their whole resume. Here, in the interest of time, I'm just going to tell you the lodge that they are the past master of, and I'll go with the past. And a lot of them are past masters of multiple lodges. So we're going to go with the first go-round of past master for all these guys, and really give them the opportunity to say what it is that they're going to bring to the office. We're going to do it beginning with the junior wardens candidates, then into the senior wardens candidates, and we're going to do this in alphabetical order in the interest of absolute fairness. After we get all the wardens candidates out of the way, we're going to hear from the two brothers who are running for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, and we'll get to the format on that after we get done the junior and senior wardens candidates. So first, let's get ourselves underway with Brother Bob Candler, who is running for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. He is a past master of Pythagoras Lodge number 123, and here he is explaining what he intends to do as Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden.
Should I get the opportunity to be Junior Grand Warden, I hope to build upon the work done by the two previous Junior Grand Wardens with regard to the membership development. We already have in place a system for the distribution of membership inquiries, but I don't know if we have any types of strategies for how the lodge membership chairman should go about encouraging prospective members to join. I think we should talk to the membership chairman from lodges that have been successful over the last few years in building membership and compile a book of their best practices that can be used as a resource for other lodges in the state. Another idea that I've discussed with my lodge and would like to present to all the lodges in the state is creating an endowment fund for the Stephen J. Ponzella Memorial Library and Museum. I've asked my lodge to consider providing the initial donation and would like to challenge all the other lodges in the state to make contributions towards this endeavor, regardless of the amount, to maintain a history of our craft in perpetuity. I think the position of Junior Grand Warden would provide a platform for me to promote this program and inspire its success. As Junior Grand Warden, I would hope to inspire our membership to embrace our ritual and support them in dedicating a sufficient amount of their energies to its deserved performance. And finally, I'd like to thank Most Worshipful Grand Master Richard Nagel for allowing us the opportunity to present some of our thoughts with regard to the position of Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden.
Once again, that's Brother Bob Candler, who is past master of Pythagoras Lodge number 123, and he is running for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. Also running for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden is Brother Norm Henthorn III. He's past master of King David's Lodge number 68. And here's Brother Norm talking about his goals for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden.
My goal for the year 2021 will be to support the Grand Lodge of Maryland in membership acquisition. In 2019, then Right Worshipful Brother Junior Grand Warden Ian McIntosh was asked to head the committee on membership acquisition. It was through the efforts of that membership acquisition that we came up with the program of the Regional Membership Chairman. The Regional Membership Chairman was a group of brothers that was selected to be the first point of contact for inquiries that were interested in joining Masonry and have reached out on their own accord to the Grand Lodge of Maryland to learn what it meant to be a Mason and what requirements would be needed. These men would reach out to the inquiries, get to know them, understand what they were looking for in Masonry, and if necessary, protect the West Gate. And it was after speaking with the regional membership chairman did the inquiry then get assigned to a local lodge, which has made the bond between the inquiry, the lodge, and Masonry in general stronger. The regional membership chairman role has allowed lodges to get back to the basics of making Masons and has made them stronger and more cohesive. In 2020, our current Right Worshipful Brother Junior Grand Warden, Brad Androkaitis, has continued to support the cause of the regional membership chairman. And I firmly believe that through the efforts of our regional membership chairman, Masonry has been bettered. We have been able to see growth, and we will continue to see benefits far into the future. It is my sincere thoughts and opinions that membership acquisition, as critical as it is, should be on the forefront of the minds of every brother in our great fraternity. For by putting forth the effort in getting to know our inquiries, can we grow our fraternity and meet the needs of our diverse communities in which our lodges serve.
Again, that is Brother Norm Henthorn, the third past master of King David's Lodge, number 68, and he is a candidate for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. Our next Junior Grand Warden candidate is Brother Rafael Rodriguez, who is past master of Collington Lodge, and here is Brother Rodriguez.
Every one of us have personal lives. We have families, careers, and other interests that will pull us in different directions every day. And this causes for Masonry to compete for our time and attention like all the other interests that we have in our lives. So in my opinion, lodges must offer meaningful experiences which will give brothers what they need to be mentally and spiritually stimulated and excited to return to the lodge. In other words, the brethren must be provided with something of value when they attend lodge. We all join our fraternity for various reasons, and it's very important that we cater to all the members and provide them with that which they seek. The Grand Lodge has developed several programs to assist lodges in gaining and retaining members. However, I believe that every lodge has a unique culture which will impact the feasibility of successfully implementing these programs. And even if they could be implemented, they may not produce a desired outcome for some lodges. On the other hand, we also have many lodges that are striving and constantly initiating and retaining their members. As Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden, I like to be able to work with these lodges and determine what has and what has not worked for them, and bring in some of these lodges that may be having difficulties with their own growth, and develop and or tailor these plans to suit their needs. By dedicating resources to work with these lodges, the Grand Lodge can develop a framework of actionable strategies, which in turn can be tailored by the lodges to help them achieve their strategic goals of increasing their members, returning their current membership, and bringing back some of those brothers that we have not seen in lodge in a while. I do believe that every lodge has the potential to become an example of successful environment that provides a unique and outstanding Masonic experience to its members. Providing quality lodge programs is crucial in building an intrinsic value for members to feel that it is worthwhile for them to remain members of the lodge and our fraternity.
That's Brother Rafael Rodriguez. He's past master of Collington Lodge number 230, a candidate for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. Our final candidate for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden is Brother Sean Winpigler. He is past master of Columbia Lodge number 58, and here is Brother Sean.
To accomplish something, you have to set a goal. Being from Western Maryland, my goal would be the first in a long time to represent my lodge, Columbia Lodge number 58, and then have a vote for Western Maryland. To be elected Junior Grand Warden is to be a good ritualist in degree work and execute the duties given to me. In all my years as a Mason, and having been a privilege to be a Grand Lodge officer, I've met a lot of good Masons. As Junior Grand Warden, I hope to meet and be friends with more of the craft all over the state and represent them in the Grand Lodge. Once my term is over as past warden, I would continue representing the craft and promoting their ideas. There are a lot of great past wardens that I know, and it would be an honor to be elected as Junior Grand Warden and serve the Grand Lodge of Maryland.
That's Brother Sean Winpigler. He is past master of Columbia Lodge number 58, candidate for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. So just once again recapping, Brother Bob Candler from Pythagoras Lodge number 123, Brother Norm Henthorn from King David's number 68, Brother Rafael Rodriguez from Collington Lodge number 230, and Brother Sean Winpigler from Columbia Lodge number 58. Those are your candidates for Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden. We'll now turn our attention to the candidates for Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, and there are 3 of those, and we'll get to them in due time. Once again, the rules are still the same. They've each got about 2 minutes to explain their goals, their thoughts regarding the office that they are seeking. Again, we're going to go in alphabetical order, and we're going to start with Brother Scott Cameron, past master of Columbia Lodge number 58, and he is candidate for Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden.
My answer to this question is a little bit more involved than what might seem. I'm also the sitting secretary of Columbia Lodge number 58 and have been for several years. And I see that one possible place that needs assistance and help is the reduction of NPDs in the Grand Lodge. There are well over half, if not 2/3 of the brethren that we lose every year is due to an NPD. And as the secretary, I deal with that quite often. So what I do at Columbia Lodge number 58, and we have reduced our NPDs by a lot, is I utilize the stewards. I use them as what their charge is, to assist in the collections of subscriptions and dues. So I utilize the stewards in that aspect. And over the past years, we have reduced our NPD significantly. We start in October, and in November, I had to send out 21 certified letters. Of those certified letters, I received 80% of them that were signed and delivered. And more than that, we got over 60 to 70% of the brethren who have paid their 19 dues. And this happens quite frequently in Columbia Lodge number 58. And that's what I'd like to accomplish as Senior Grand Warden, is to get the lodges involved and having them utilize their stewards to help collect the dues and make it on part of the lodge itself to help bring the brethren back and reduce the NPDs. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
That's Brother Scott Cameron, past master of Columbia Lodge number 58. He is seeking the office of Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden. Also seeking the office of Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, he's past master of Ionic Lodge number 145. It's Brother Tom Foster.
I think what's most interesting to me is that these positions were traditionally thought of as basically honorary titles, and that's no longer the case as it is for any of the elected Grand Lodge offices. The senior warden in particular has been tasked in the last couple of years with working on membership retention, and that's a long overdue problem that I am really happy to see addressed and would be very much looking forward to working with. I believe that there's certainly a role in performing ritual and doing it well, whether it's at the installation ceremonies or whether it's being asked to conduct a Master Mason degree as part of the Grand Line. And I do take my ritual very much seriously. Primarily, though, I think the role of the wardens is to act as an ambassador, not as an ambassador of the Grand Lodge, but as an ambassador of all the Blue Lodges. You have a real opportunity to serve as a go-between, someone who can be out visiting lodges and talking to the masters, talking to the members, finding out what's going on, and you certainly, as a Grand Warden, have the ear of the Grand Master, and you can pass along these ideas. There seems to be, there's a structure. We all meet on the level, but there's a reluctance sometimes to go directly to the Grand Master with an issue or an idea or a problem. And I think by being out there, being a representative that the brethren would be comfortable talking to, it's certainly a role that is an important one and one that I would look forward to serving.
That's Brother Tom Foster. He's past master of Ionic Lodge number 145, seeking the office of Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden. Our next candidate for Senior Grand Warden is Brother Rick Mendez, and Brother Rick is past master of Silver Spring Lodge number 215.
If given the opportunity to be Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, it would be an honor and a privilege, first of all. Secondly, one of the things I'd like to accomplish is to serve the Grand Master and the Grand Lodge and all its members to the best of my ability. That's something that I would like to accomplish. Third thing I'd like to accomplish is that to have an opportunity to inspire at least one Mason in the state of Maryland, to give him a great impression collectively with the Grand Lodge as we travel around the state, to see how we carry ourselves, our protocol, our etiquette in lodge, the love of ritual. I mean, just to inspire one Mason not only to be a better man, but to be a better Mason, because that's what happened to me. The first time that I witnessed and saw the Grand Lodge, the Grand Line with the Grand Master, I'll never forget it. That was the night that I was actually being raised by Grand Master Velvin and his Grand Line. And when they walked in, it was so impressive. It was beautiful. It was graceful. It moved me. It changed me as a man. And that night, I never forget, Grand Master Velvin stood up and he barked out instructions to his Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master to take his place. And as that Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master stood up, my mentor, who was sitting directly behind me, whispered in my ear. He said, "You see that man? He's the best Mason in the state. Listen to his ritual. Listen to his voice." That Deputy Grand Master sat in the east, and when he spoke, it was a booming voice. That was past Grand Master Stephen Ponzello. May his soul rest in peace. It made an impression on me, and that's what I would like to do, because it made me want to be a better Mason. I became master of my lodge 2015 and 16, and I was a part of the Grand Line with Grand Master Wyville. If there's anything else I wanted to accomplish with the Grand Lodge, was to make all my mentors and my family and my ancestors proud of me and leave a legacy for my children and my grandchildren, because I am proud to be a Mason. I'm proud to be born and raised in this great state of Maryland, because us Masons, we are the patriots of the world.
That's Brother Rick Mendez, past master of Silver Spring Lodge number 215, seeking the office of Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden. So just recapping our candidates for Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, we have Brother Scott Cameron from Columbia Lodge number 58, Brother Tom Foster from Ionic Lodge number 145, and Brother Rick Mendez from Silver Spring Lodge number 215.
From the Grand Lodge of Maryland, this is the Common Gavel Podcast.
Once again, welcome to a special edition of the Common Gavel Podcast. I am your host, Maynard Edwards, a.k.a. Brother Rich Thurfield, and filling in for Tom Foster, who is not appearing as the host because he is on the program as a candidate, and in the interest of fairness, I'm handling production and hosting duties this time around. Before we get to hearing from the candidates for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, I wanted to mention that our current Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, Brother Marlon L. Mills, is running for the office of Most Worshipful Grand Master of Masons in Maryland, and he is running unopposed. So we will not be hearing from him on this podcast, but he is running unopposed. His entire Masonic resume will appear in an upcoming issue of the Free State Freemason. Now, getting into the candidates for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, a slightly different format than the wardens. The wardens each had 2 minutes. This time, each candidate is going to be limited to 10 minutes total, and our Most Worshipful Grand Master of Masons in Maryland, Brother Richard P. Nagel, has come up with 3 questions for each of the candidates, and we are going to go through those 3 questions one at a time with each candidate, beginning with Brother Fred Spicer, who is past master of Amicable St. John's, number 25. The first question: what do you see as the primary challenge facing Maryland Masonry?
Well, personally, I think the biggest challenge facing Maryland Masonry is to get the Grand Lodge spending under control. The Grand Lodge last year spent $2.4 million. We've got 100 lodges that pay assessments, so that's $24,000 per lodge. And people say, how are they paying for that? Then they told us they had the assessments with the assessment increase last year. And then they showed where they transferred $1.5 million out of Maryland Masonic Homes endowment into the Grand Lodge account. So now the Maryland Masonic Homes is helping to support the Grand Lodge of Maryland instead of the Grand Lodge of Maryland supporting the Maryland Masonic Homes. So what I did is I thought, well, maybe that's not fair. So I went back and I pulled some of the past proceedings. And I went back to 1985 when Maryland had 36,000 Masons. I took the expenses for the Grand Lodge out of those proceedings, and I went to the internet, found a inflation calculator, and in 1985, apples for apples, we spent $1.3 million. We had 36,000 Masons, and the Grand Lodge of Maryland spent $1.3 million in today's money. Then I thought, well, let's move ahead, say like 20 years. So I went to 2005 to find out how much money was spent then. I took those expenses, I ran them through the inflation calculator, and they spent $535,000. Now, we had 19,000 Masons, and we spent 25% of what we're spending now. And then I went back and looked at the NPDs. In 1985, we had 139 NPDs. In 2005, we have 108 NPDs. And last year, we had 385. So the extra money is not keeping Masons in. And that's what I believe is the primary challenge that we're facing today.
Question number 2, what are your thoughts on the current public awareness program? Would you continue the same path, expand, or discontinue the program?
We had a Grandmaster stand up in the Grand East not too long ago and explained to us that the Grand Lodge has spent too much money on advertising, mass market advertising. He said we were going to discontinue it because there are less expensive, more effective ways of doing a public awareness campaign. And I think he's right. I believe that we have to get some basics done in our public awareness before we move on. When I was a master of a lodge the first time, my lodge was in the newspaper every week. You'd open the newspaper, you go to the fraternal section, there was my lodge, date, time that they met, and where we met. When I used to travel, and I used to extensively for work, the same thing. You'd go to a town, you'd open a newspaper, you'd look in it, and there was a Masonic Lodge, when and where it met. Well, today, when you're traveling, you don't buy a newspaper anymore. You pull out your phone and you go, Masonic Lodges near me. Sometimes one will pop up, sometimes it won't. Not every lodge in the state of Maryland is on maps. So if somebody is in that town and they're traveling, or they've just moved to that town and they go to their phone, Masonic Lodges near me, if that lodge is not on maps, it's not going to show up. Next, if someone is interested in Masonry, you go to your search engine and you type in Masonic Lodge in the town. Quite a few lodges in the state have excellent websites, fantastic websites. There's others that have websites, but they're not up to date. So if someone is thinking about becoming a Mason, say they see a memorial service or they meet somebody at work and they go home and they type in Masonic Lodge in their town and a page comes up, but that page has not been updated. It's got 2010 officers, or they go to the calendar and they click the calendar and it's blank. That's not the lodge's fault, because at some point they had someone in their lodge that said, I've got the expertise, I'm going to set you up with a website, hosting's a couple $100 a year, and I'll take care of it. And something happened to that member. He moved, he had a kid, he's gone. We need to get the basics, we need to get the lodges on maps. We need to make sure that the lodge websites that are out there are up to date. And then there are lodges that don't have a website, so people in that town may not know that there are Masons there. But at least if we get those two things, then as we do a public awareness campaign, someone can go to something locally. They don't have to go to our Grand Lodge site and give a bunch of information. they can go right to their local site. I also believe that the advertising, as they've told us, mainly affects the Baltimore area, the 95 corridor. Every Mason in the state of Maryland has helped paying for that advertising, $200 and some thousand a year. I really think we need more of the local advertising, not an ad like we show on TV. Maybe you just get the square and compasses out there. I've seen it on placemats in like diners across the country. I've seen it in local magazines, local newspapers, so that people know there are Masons in that area.
Third and final question. What would you do to help lodges that are currently struggling with getting officers?
I really believe that the men who run our lodges are intelligent men. I believe a lot of times that they know what they need. Well, a perfect example, we had a great guy. Had a guy who was a Mason, and he's worshipful master of his lodge for going on 20 years. This worshipful master, he's keeping Masonry alive. Finally, a Grand Master went to him and asked him and said, "Worshipful master, what do you need to get this lodge going, get officers, and get you out of the East?" And the man knew right away. He told the Grand Master what he needed. He needed a little help from the Grand Lodge, and if the Grand Lodge would do what he asked, he would make sure that he gets his officers trained, and he was 100% right. It didn't cost the Grand Lodge a lot of money. We didn't have to lower any bars across the state. And that lodge has had a number of like new masters, and they've gotten some like grand inspectors out of it. I also think that just because a master has been master of a lodge for a number of years, I don't believe that that lodge is in trouble. If the lodge, they're having their meetings, they've got some people on the sidelines, they bring in a few people a year, they're a cohesive lodge, I think that's okay. I was just at a lodge where a master has been there for 5 years. He's a wonderful man. He's an excellent ritualist. From like junior warden down, he's got a full line. It's newer men. And I asked him, are they going to take advantage of this new program? And he said, no. He said the junior warden, he's a young guy. He's got a great mind. He could do it. But he wants the full Masonic experience. He came in, they put him in a steward's chair, and he has spent every year in a chair working up. And then the people who came behind him have done the same thing. So they are getting the full Masonic experience, and that's what they want. And so this worshipful master is willing to sit in the East and do what it takes. So I wonder how many lodges are like that. I know a half a dozen anyway, that they're actually, like worshipful masters are sitting there for like multiple years because they're training their officers. I think that's great. Are there lodges out there that need a little help with like officers? Yes. But maybe you hop in the car and you drive to the lodge, you sit through a meeting, and then at the end, you meet with them and ask what would work for that lodge. The Grand Master said that we had 7 worshipful masters that took advantage of the new program that he has. One of these worshipful masters, he hasn't been a Mason long. He didn't get the full training. Now, this is a great guy, and if anybody can do it, it'll be him. But I don't think that we should look at the numbers and say we need to get these numbers up. Yes, we lost 80 some past masters last year, but there's got to be, there's 1,400 like past masters across the state. Not a huge percentage. But I think if we train these men and not try to shove them through, because it's just not the ritual it takes to like run a lodge. You've got to know how to be a Mason. I think it's more you treat lodges as like individuals. They each have their own needs, and maybe they all don't need the same things. They each have their strengths. And if a lodge has got some like weakness, that's something that we can handle on an individual basis.
That's Brother Fred Spicer. He is a candidate for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, and he is a past master of Amicable St. John's Lodge, number 25. Moving on now to our next candidate, Brother Randy Watson. Brother Watson is a past master of Montgomery Cornerstone Lodge, number 195. The same 3 questions are going to be asked of Brother Watson. The first question, what do you see as the primary challenge facing Maryland Masonry?
I think our primary challenge is sustainability. Since peaking in the early 1960s, our membership has been steadily declining. I know many brothers say we should be interested in quality and not quantity, but I believe we must have both. Census estimates are that there are about 2.2 million men over the age of 18 in Maryland. That means that our current membership is around 0.5% of the potential pool. Even with the high crime rate and allowing for criminals who are not caught, and those who are caught but not convicted or are given PBJs, there must be more than double our current membership of quality men of good moral character who would be a credit to Masonry. And if we could reach them, we could grow our crafts membership to exceed the high water mark of the 1960s without lowering our standards or threatening the quality assurance controls of the Westgate and ballot box. Probably the best opportunity we have to reach these men, convince them of our good influence, incite their desire to join, and educate them to know to ask is through referrals. The current members should live Masonry, to show others that they're members, to talk about their membership, what they do, and most especially what Masonry means to them. I don't mean that everyone should go around knocking on doors, making cold calls, and soliciting membership, but everyone should be at ease in talking about Masonry to their family, friends, and co-workers. In addition to the good they do in their own right, our Masonic youth groups provide several potential avenues for growing membership in Masonry. We already know that they are exposed to Masonic teachings and ideals. Obviously, DeMolays can potentially become Masons, but there's also the potential that the Job's daughters and Rainbow girls may eventually marry, and if they have a good opinion of the craft, may convince their husbands to learn about and join Masonry. If we grow our youth groups, we should be able to grow ourselves. An important part of a passive sales technique is how to get the people around you to even know you're a Mason. Grandmaster Nagel's Masonic Awareness Day is pointed at that topic. He's asked everyone to wear something identifying them as a Mason on May 1st. That's an excellent start, but we should all try to do it every day. It can be as subtle as a ring or a small lapel pin, just enough so someone could become interested enough to ask what it is to open the door for conversation. But once the topic has been broached, we have to make sure that our brethren have something interesting and inspiring to say. That will vary from lodge to lodge and from brother to brother. Some might be inspired by good ritual and comment on attending an impressive degree conferral, or there might be a particularly interesting discussion or presentation that was made, or a charitable project that the lodge did. Really, whatever excites and inspires that brother. The best sales pitch isn't a scripted part designed to try to get the person's interest. It's actually just someone who loves what they do and who's talking about it and what it means to them personally. We must maintain our standards, ideals, landmarks, and quality of our ritual. These set us apart from social clubs and cannot be lost. If the lodges are having programs, activities, and projects that are interesting to their members, retention of those members will go well. Most men won't demit or drop out for non-payment of dues if they're interested and involved in the lodge. Another area with sustainability concerns is the Maryland Masonic homes at Bonnie Blink. With Masonic membership dropping, our pool of potential residents in the homes is also decreasing. Tammy Houck, director of the homes, and her managers are working on developing a realistic business plan to present to the Board of Trustees and Board of Managers to make sure that both boards are okay with the projected operational and financial implications. Some Grand Lodges who have had Masonic homes have closed them or turned them over to private concerns. Bonnie Blink provides a superior level of care to the residents, and there's no desire to decrease that. We must continue to provide the best care to our brothers, their wives and widows, including those on financial assistance. In summary, I believe the primary challenge facing Maryland Masonry is sustainability in the number of members, financial viability, preservation of our ideals and landmarks, including ritual, and ability to care for our senior members and widows. If we abandon all the progress made in the past 20 years in an effort to go back to our roots or simply to save money, we'll condemn the fraternity to insignificance. It won't completely dissolve, but there will be so few that it won't really matter. In my opinion, for a great and historical fraternity, insignificance is a fate worse than death.
Question number 2. What are your thoughts on the current public awareness program? Would you continue the same path, expand, or discontinue the program?
I believe the focus of the public awareness program should be modified. We can't simply discontinue our efforts, or we resolve to allow ourselves to sink into oblivion. In state government, we implemented a data-driven business approach. We didn't simply guess what we thought would work. We looked at what we did and measured the actual results we got. If the data showed that a program wasn't working, we didn't just continue on without modifying it. And if a program was working, we didn't abandon it just because it was unpopular with some. With 10,000 staff and 23,000 inmates in our department, no important decision made everyone happy. One of the hardest aspects of being a good leader is being able to make an unpopular decision. Having the data to support it makes that process easier. Most of our public awareness efforts have been focused on broadcast media, which are so expensive that it's difficult to relay any detailed content in an affordable clip. But at least the ads we've used have had a measurable success in getting people to go to our website, especially the first year with the Ben Franklin Is There Greatness in You ad. It's also impossible to cover the entire state fairly through broadcast media, especially with a high number of households who get their station selections from a cable or satellite package provider. I believe our primary media outreach should be via social media and OTT, over-the-top advertising. They can be used to provide our message content to a fine-tuned target market with definable geographic limits that can cover the state and be specifically geared toward men in the age brackets most likely to be interested in our fraternity. But in addition to the format of the program, I think our content needs to be changed as well. Yes, we make good men better and shouldn't forget that as one of our main points. But we need to go beyond that message in order to more effectively engage the audience's interest and provide specifics of what we actually do, how we make good men better, and the positive impact we have on our surrounding communities and not just on our members. Some good men think they don't need to become better. But if we give the general public information on how useful our fraternity is to the community, we could encourage those who want to help their fellow men to look at us as a way of them being able to actively participate in giving back. Each member is an example of Freemasonry and should encourage acquaintances and even strangers to ask them about the fraternity. But they do need to be prepared to respond to those questions in a way to safeguard the security of the West Gate while encouraging those who would be good Masons. So an important aspect of our public awareness program should be providing our members with the knowledge and ability to effectively communicate our message in the most valuable terms, what Masonry means to him personally. An enthusiastic member sharing his own experiences is the best advertising there is.
Third and final question. What would you do to help lodges that are currently struggling with getting officers?
I strongly support the leadership training that the Grand Lodge has offered to upcoming officers. Many junior officers have attended and had enough time pass before he's ready to ascend into the East that he wants a refresher course. There have been some changes since it began, but we should have additional modules and alternate them from year to year. So if someone attends twice, he won't be getting almost entirely duplicate material. Possibly we could have 2 separate offerings, the current program for first-time attendees and a different program for those attending a second time. Grandmaster Nagel has provided us with a good start at addressing the problem. At town hall meetings throughout the state, he asked for suggestions and discussed them with those who attended. Many brethren thought that the ritual requirement for certification was a barrier to getting new masters, but many other brethren were strongly opposed to any change in the amount of ritual required for certification. After weighing the suggestions and comments, he took steps to implement some of the suggestions that were made on this topic. First, he issued an edict to eliminate the expiration of a brother's certification for proficiency to confer the degrees. Secondly, he issued a very controversial decision on an alternative Worshipful Master certification process. Although I personally disagree with some of the specifics of this process as it's currently laid out, I applaud him for having the fortitude to try it. The belief by many that the ritual alone is a hindrance to getting new masters has now been put to a test. We will be able to see what results it has and whether the number of effective new worshipful masters increases as expected. Overall, I think that this type of modification to the process could work as long as, first, it's entirely at the request of the lodge. It can't be forced upon them by the aspiring officer. Secondly, there are eligibility requirements so that a lodge that isn't having problems won't be tempted to take a shortcut. And thirdly, and most importantly, assurances are in place that the lodge doesn't lose the ability to confer the degrees. It's unthinkable to me to allow a structure where it's acceptable that lodges don't and can't do the full degrees. I hope that this alternative process is given a sufficient trial period to accurately measure its impact, and that it's not prematurely dropped or given a major overhaul before its impact can be properly evaluated.
That's Brother Randy Watson, past master of Montgomery Cornerstone Lodge number 195, and he is a candidate for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master. So just to recap, there are two candidates for Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, Brother Fred Spicer of Amicable St. John's number 25, and Brother Randy Watson of Montgomery Cornerstone Lodge number 195. All the men running for office have extensive Masonic resumes, and all of those resumes, as I've repeated a few times, are going to be printed in an upcoming edition of the Free State Freemason. The election is going to be held on May 18th at the semi-annual communication, and all Master Masons are welcome to be there. And of course, Worshipful Masters and Lodge Secretaries, Lodge Officers, your attendance is really, really appreciated so that you can be there to participate in this very important vote. As always, if you've got questions, comments, or ideas for the Common Gavel podcast, you can email them to podcast@glmd.org. We're always eager to hear from you and find out what it is you'd like to know about what is happening in Maryland Masonry. Good luck to all of our candidates, all fine men, all fine Masons, and the craft is going to be served well by any of those elected. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Make it a great month in Maryland Masonry. I'm Maynard Edwards in for Tom Foster here on the Common Gavel podcast.